cutout test. Second is the governor cut-in test. Third is the apply test. 4 is the low air warning test. 5 is the spring brake pop-up test. 6 is checking the tractor and trailer valve to make sure they're properly working. And finally is the service brake test, which is you double checking to make sure the brake pedal is working. Before I start the vehicle, I'm going to double check to make sure my air gauge is at 100 psi. Make sure my parking brakes is on the on position. My transmission is in the neutral position. And finally, I got to put my seatbelt on. Turning my key on to make sure, double check to the DPS light turn on and off and the ABF light turn on and off. Now I'm going to start the vehicle by pressing on the clutch. I'm going to start first with the governor cutout. On the governor cutout, I'm looking to build maximum air pressure and the compressor to turn off at no higher than 130 psi. I'm going to raise the air pressure by pressing on the accelerator at no more than 1,000 RPMs. And what I'm checking and hearing that the compressor making a noise and the needle to stop rising. Okay, I heard the noise. Also, my needle has stopped rising. The primary reads 120 psi. The secondary read also at 120 psi. That means the compressor is working properly. I'm going to start with the governor cut-in test. On the governor cut-in test, I'm looking for the governor to cut in and the compressors to start building air again at no lower than 85 psi. What I'm going to do first, I'm going to drop the air pressure by pressing on the service brake, which is the brake pedal. I'm going to drop the air pressure 5 pounds at a time and wait sometimes. The air compressor is not building up, so I'm going to drop it one more time. Wait some time again, which is 5 seconds. Compressor's not kicking in, so I'm going to drop it one more time. At this point, I'm waiting for the needle to start rising. That's when it's going to let me know that the governor cut-in has occurred. I'm watching the needle. Okay, my needle has started to rise. That means the compressor is back working. The primary reads exactly 95 psi. The secondary reading also at 95 psi. That means the air compressor is working properly. Step number 3 is the apply test. On the apply test, I'm checking to make sure that the system does not have any air leaks. If the system has any air leaks, it should lose no more than 4 psi within 1 minute. Okay, step number 1 on the apply test, I have to raise the pressure at maximum air pressure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press on the accelerator to build the air again. Okay, the compressor has kicked in. I'm going to start with put in step number 2, which is putting the transmission into the lower gear. Step number 3, I'm going to shut the engine off. Step number 4, I'm going to release the tractor and trailer parking brakes. I'm going to wait for the air to stabilize. Okay, the air has been stabilized. The reading on the primary is is exactly 95 psi. The secondary also at 95 psi. Step number 6 now, I'm going to press on the service brake. Wait for air to stabilize. Again, my first reading on the primary is exactly 85 psi. The secondary also is exactly 85 psi. Now I'm going to start a 1 minute test. Starts now. With the 1 minute, I'm paying attention to my needles, and I'm also hearing for any air leaks. Okay, my 1 minute has finished. My primary needle stayed the same at exactly 85 psi. The secondary needle also stayed exactly at 85 psi. That means I lost 0 psi. The applied test is good test. There's no air leaks. I'm going to start with the fourth test. It's called the low air warning test. On the low air warning test, I'm checking for a light or buzzer to turn on in between 75 and 55 psi. Before I do that, I'm going to turn the key on the on position. Now I'm going to release air by pressing on the service brake. Okay, sir, my light came on the dash. My primary needle is exactly 65 psi. The secondary also at 65 psi. That means the light came on at a proper range of psi. Now my 5th step is called the spring brake pop-up test, which I'm double checking to make sure that my parking and trailer brake popped out in between 20 to 45 psi. I'm going to leave the key on exactly like it is, and I'm going to release the air pressure again by pressing on the service brake. Both my tractor and parking brake came on exactly at 25 psi on the primary, and secondary exactly at 30 psi, which means the parking and trailer brake pop out in the range of 20 to 45 psi. Now what I'm going to do now, I'm going to start the engine back on. I'm going to put the transmission into the neutral, keeping the clutch in, and I'm ready to start the engine once again. Okay, what I'm going to do is raise the pressure back to normal pressure or at maximum air pressure by pressing on the accelerator at no more than 1,000 RPMs again. Now I got maximum air pressure already. What I'm going to test first is the parking brake on the trailer. First, what I'm going to do is put the transmission into the lower gear. Okay, I'm going to release the parking brake on the tractor. And I'm only going to slightly release the clutch. Okay, the parking brake on the trailer is working properly. I'm going to apply now the tractor brake. And I'm going to release the trailer brake, and I'm going to do the same thing. Okay, the tractor brake is working properly. Now I'm going to test the final step, which I'm testing to make sure my service brake, which is the brake pedal, I'm only going to release the parking brake because the other one's already released. And I'm going to move forward just a little bit to test the parking brake is working. Okay, it moves correctly, the parking brake is on. I'm going to apply for safety both the parking brakes. I'm going to put my transmission into neutral. And this completes the first part of the pre-inspection. Now I'm going to start with the second part of the pre-inspection, which is called the in-cap inspection. I'm going to start with my oil pressure. It should read between 20 to 60 psi's. Right now it's reading 25 psi's. The water temperature must read between 170 and 195 degrees. Right now I have 175 degrees. This truck has a digital voltmeter. It should be between 12 to 15. Right now I have 14 volts. My seat belt, the driver and passenger must be on and off. My gear should be not cracked or bent or illegal welding. My dual splitter should go up and down. And my rubber boot should be mounted securely with no cracks, no tears. My fire extinguisher should be filled at maximum level on the green and the tag up to date. Underneath the seat I have 3 triangles, should be not cracked or broken or discolored. My windshield section, the windshield should be not cracked or bent with no illegal stickers around the windshield. The rubber seal, no cracks, no tears. My windshield wiper should be able to turn on and off. Wiper blade on the wiper should be not cracked or bent. Windshield washer fluid should be at maximum level underneath the cap and should be able to turn on and off. My heater and defroster should be able to turn on and off. My city horn, you should be able to hear it, and my highway horn, you should be able to hear both. Now my lights, my right turn signal should be able to turn on and off. My left turn signal also should be able to turn on and off. My four-ways or emergency lights should be able to turn on and off. My high and my low beams should be able to turn on and off. And finally, my both mirrors should be bolted tight to the door, should be not cracked or broken, and you should have a clear view to the rear of the trailer. This completes the in-cap inspection. Now we're going to go outside and do the walk-around inspection. Our walk-around inspection on the tractor, we're going to start with our clearance lights. We are checking to make sure they're bolted tight, no cracks, not broken, and no discolorations on and turn on and off. We're going to start with our left turn signal and our right turn signal to be bolted tight, no crack, turn on and off. Our high and low beams also we are checking to turn on and off, not missing, not cracked or broken. Our front grille, we're checking to make sure that it's bolted tight, not cracked or bent. Our front bumper, also that is bolted tight with no cracks and no dents. We're going to start underneath the vehicle to make sure that we are checking for no leaks such as power steering, oil or coolant. And we also checking to make sure there's no hoses or wires hanging down. This is the proper way of opening a commercial hood. You're going to start here on the left side to make sure that you unlatch it. Okay, you're going to open a little bit forward to unlatch the tension that you have against the rubber seals. And you're going to go in the front of the vehicle. You're going to put your right feet here and put slowly with your right hand and slightly with your right hand on the top so you won't come down facing and hitting your face with it. Okay, we're going to start with the actual coolant bottle. Okay, on the actual coolant bottle, I'm checking to make sure that it's bolted tight, not cracked or broken. The cap opens and closes and at maximum level. On the hoses, I'm checking for no cracks, no tears, no leaks, and no missing clamps. We're going to continue on now with the water pump. The water pump, the main purpose of the water pump is to keep the engine cool. Now we're going to double check the water pump to make sure it's bolted tight, not cracked or broken. It's a belt driven part, so we're going to check the actual belt for no cracks, no tears. And it should have a minimum of 3/4 inches of play. Now the hoses around the water pump should be no cracks, no tears, and no leaks, and no missing clamps. Okay, now we're going to start with the alternator. Also, alternator is a belt driven part. The main purpose of an alternator is to make sure we keep the batteries charged. Now the alternator, we're going to check it for no cracks, no dents, and it's bolted tight. The actual belts, again, 3/4 inch plate, no cracks, no tears, and the wire should be bolted tight and not exposed. This completes the passenger side inspection. Now we're going to check the driver's side. We're going to start on our walk-around inspection on our driver's side part of the engine. We're going to start with the air compressor. Our air compressor is a gear-driven part. We're checking to be bolted tight with no cracks, no dents, and no air leaks. On the hoses, we are checking to be bolted tight with no cracks, no tears, and no air leaks. Now we're going to start with the steering column. On the steering column, we're checking for the rubber boot to be with no cracks, no tears, and mounted securely to the firewall. On the actual steering column, we're checking for no cracks with no dents and no illegal welding. U-joints well greased. We are checking on the power steering reservoir to be bolted tight with no cracks, no leaks. The caps open and closes. The actual hoses with no cracks, no tears, no leaks, and no missing clamp. On the actual power steering box, it's actual gear-driven part, bolted tight with no cracks and no dents. The hoses with no cracks, no tears, no leaks, and no missing clamps. On the next section is the steering linkage section that includes the pitman arm and the drag link to be bolted tight with no cracks, no dents, no illegal welding. The crown nut bolted tight, cotter pin not missing. The rubber bushings well greased. We're gonna start now with the major sections that includes the suspension, the front service brakes, the tires, and wheels. Okay, we're gonna start with the suspension section that includes the spring mount, the leaf springs, and the actual U-bolts and the shock absorber. We are checking first on the spring mount to be bolted tight with no cracks, no dents, and not broken. The leaf springs, checking for no cracks, no dents, no swings, no illegal welding, and not to be broken. The actual U-bolts to be bolted tight with no cracks on it, not missing. The shock absorber to be bolted tight with no cracks, no dents, rubber bushings well greased, and no leaks. That completes our suspension. Now we're going to start with the front service brakes. We're going to start first with the brake hose with no cracks, no tears, no air leaks. The brake chamber to be bolted tight with no cracks, no dents. Push rod minimum of 1 inch of play. The slack adjuster to be bolted tight with no cracks, no dents. The slack adjuster to be bolted tight at a 90-degree angle. The brake drum, no grease, no oil or discoloration. And the brake shoes, minimum at least of 1/4 inch left. Now we're checking on the actual tire. The tire, we're checking for ICD. The I is for the inflation. It should be from 90 to 105 PSIs. Condition, sidewall, top wall with no cuts, no bubbles, no nails. The tires in the front should be never recapped, should be always brand new tires. The depth on the tires to 4/32 depth. On the valve stem, not touching the rim, with the cap not missing and no air leaks. Now we're going to check for the rim. On the actual rim, we're checking for no cracks, no dents, no illegal welding. All the lug nuts should be bolted tight with no rust. Rust is the indication of they loose. And the last and final thing is called the hub oil seal. We are checking to make sure that it's bolted tight, okay, with no cracks, no dents, and no leaks. On the actual seal, we are checking to be present with no cracks, no tears, and no leaks. The filler cap should be not exposed. This completes our front tire section. Okay, we're gonna start with the driver door. On the driver door, we're checking to make sure the door opens and closes. The window must go up and down. The weather stripping or rubber seal should be no cracks, no tears on it. The handle should be bolted tight with no grease, no oil. The actual mirror should be bolted tight to the door with no cracks, no tears, no illegal stickers on the mirrors, and you're able to see to the rear. On the steps, we're checking to be bolted tight with no debris such as oil, water, or grease on both steps. On the batteries, we're checking to be they're bolted tight with no wires exposed, no corruption on the wires, and no acid leaks. We are checking for the diesel tank. The diesel tank should be bolted tight to the frame. On the welds with no cracks, no dents on it. The cap should be open and closed with the T-chain not missing and the rubber seal not missing. Also at the bottom, I'm checking to make sure there's no diesel leaks. We're going to start with the rear of the cap. We're going to start with our window. The window should be not cracked or broken and well cleaned and no illegal stickers. On the reflectors, should be not missing, well placed. We're going to start with our electrical lines. The electrical line should be bolted tight, wires not exposed, pins not missing. On our airlines, on our glad hands should be bolted tight to the airlines. The red is for the emergency, the blue is for service. The actual airlines, I'm checking for no cracks, no tears, and no air leaks. Now we're going to start with our catwalk. Our catwalk should be bolted tight to the frame with no debris such as oil, water. On the actual frame should be no cracks, no dents, no illegal welding. On the step also should be bolted tight to the frame with no grease, no oil. We're going to go to our drive shaft. Our drive shaft should be bolted tight, no illegal welding. Both U-joints on both ends should be well greased. Now we're going to start with the fifth wheel. On the fifth wheel, we are checking to make sure all the mounting bolts are securely and bolted tight to the frame. The release arm should be open and closed with no illegal welding and no cracks and no dents. The fifth wheel locking pins and safety pins should be not missing. The fifth wheel skid plate on the rear should be not cracked or dents and well greased. Underneath the trailer is the platform, and top of the fifth wheel is the apron, should be well greased with no gap. In the back of the fifth wheel, you have locking jaws that should open and close and well greased. Underneath the trailer, you will have a kingpin, should be not missing and not bent. We're going to start with the front suspension of the rear of the tractor. We're going to start with the spring mount. Should be bolted tight with no cracks and no dents. Underneath the spring mount is the torque spring. Should be bolted tight with no cracks, no dents, no illegal welding. On the U-bolt should be not missing and bolted tight. In the rear, we have a shock absorber. Should be bolted tight with no cracks, no dents, rubber bushing not missing. And on the rear, on this tractor, we have dual airbag system. Should be bolted tight with no cracks, no tears, and no air leaks. This completes the suspension section. Now we're gonna go over to a dual spring brake system. Okay, we're gonna start with the rear of the tractor brake system. The difference between the rear tractor brake system and the one in the front. The ones in the front service brakes. The ones in the rear is a dual air brake system that includes 2 brake chambers, dual spring brakes, and dual brake hoses. I'm going to start with the brake hoses. Brake hoses with no cracks, no tears, no air leaks. The brake chamber should be bolted tight with no cracks, no dents, no air leaks. The push rod should have minimum from 1 to 2 inches of play. The slack adjuster I'm checking to be bolted tight with no cracks, no dents, and a 90-degree angle. Okay, on the brake drum, I'm checking for no oil leaks, no discoloration, and not to be broken or no cracks. And the brake shoes, no less than 1/4 inch aligning left. On the tires, the difference on the tires on the rear of the tractor to the front tractor is that it's a dual tire. The inflation is the same, 90 to 105 psi. The condition, I will check it the same with the inner wall, outer wall, for checking for no cuts, no bubbles, no nails. And the depth is different. These are 232s. Also, these tires can be recapped. While I'm having 2 tires, I must have a 4-inch minimum gap between the tires, and it must be clean from all debris such as trash and bottles. By having 2 tires, I have dual valve stems that I'm checking for no cracks, no air leaks, and no missing cap. Now I will check for my rims. On my rims, I'm checking to make sure that there's no gap between the rims, no cracks, no dents, no illegal welding. All the lug nuts should be bolted tight with no signs of rust. The axle seal should be bolted tight and well greased. That completes my rear tractor tire section and wheel section. I'm going to start with the rear of the tractor. I'm going to start checking all the lights. That includes my left turn signal, my right turn signal, and my four-ways to be bolted tight, turn on and off, and not discolored. Also, on my reverse light, I'm checking to be able to turn on and off, not broken, and not discoloration on it. And finally, the rear of my tractor, that includes my mud flaps, should be bolted tight to the frame. The mud flap not touching the floor and not touching the tire. This is going to complete my walk around inspection on the tractor. We're going to start with the front headboard walk around. We're going to start the same way as we did the tractor, with our top commercial lights or clearance lights should be able to turn on and off, not crack or broken or discolored. On our front headboard, we're checking for no cracks, no dents, and no missing rivets. On our electrical lines from the trailer, our females, the glad hands, we're checking to be bolted tight with no cracks, no tears on the rubber seal. On the actual lines with no cracks, no tears, bolted tight with no air leaks. On the electrical box, we should be bolted tight with not missing and no wires exposed. On the reflectors, not missing. On the actual dents, no cracks, no dents, or illegal welding. Now we're going to go to the driver's side wall of the trailer. Okay, we're going to start with our driver's side wall of the trailer. We're going to start with our clearance lights. Should be able to turn on and off, not cracked or broken or discolored. Our wall, we're checking for no cracks, no dents, and no missing rivets. On our frame, we're checking for no cracks, no dents, and no illegal welding. On the reflectors, should be mounted securely to the wall, not missing or discolored. On our landing gear, we're gonna start as the gear-driven part with the speeds of high and low. Okay, the crank and R should be bolted tight with no cracks and no dents and not hanging. Our actual whole landing gear should be welded to the frame and bolted tight. The actual legs should be well greased. The actual feet not missing. Underneath the trailer, you have rails, should be not missing or cracked or bended. On top of the rails, you have floorboards, should be with no cracks and no holes on the floorboards. On the rear of the suspension and the rear, there's differences. On the spring mount is welded, on the front is bolted. In the back, I have an adjustable torque arm on the driver's side. On the passenger, it's a fixed torque arm. I'm going to start on the actual spring mount. It should be welded with no illegal weldings, no cracks, no dents. The leaf springs should be bolted tight with no cracks, no dents, or illegal welding. The torque arm is adjustable torque arm, like I mentioned. Should be no cracks, no dents. The U-bolts not missing. Also, in the back, I do not have no airbags, and I do not have a shock absorber. This completes the suspension. Now I'm gonna do the brake system. I have a dual brake hose, dual air brake system, spring brakes, and brake chambers. I'm gonna start with the brake hoses with no cracks, no tears, no leaks. The brake chamber should be bolted tight with no cracks, no dent. The push rod should have minimum from 1 to 2 inches of play. The slack adjuster, I'm checking to be bolted tight with no cracks, no dents, and a 90-degree angle. On the brake drum, I'm checking for no oil leaks, no discoloration, and not to be broken or no cracks. Brake shoes, no less than 1/4 inch aligning left. On the tires, the difference on the tires on the rear of the tractor to the front tractor is that it's a dual tire. The inflation is the same, 90 to 105 psi. The condition, I will check it the same with the inner wall, outer wall, and the top wall for checking for no cuts, no bubbles, no nails. And the depth is different. These are 232s. Also, these tires can be recapped. While I'm having 2 tires, I must have a 4-inch minimum gap between the tires, and it must be clean from all debris such as trash and bottles. By having 2 tires, I have dual valve stems that I'm checking for no cracks, no air leaks, and no missing cap. Now I will check for my rims. On my rims, I'm checking to make sure that there's no gap between the rims, no cracks, no dents, no illegal welding. All the lug nuts should be bolted tight with no signs of rust. This is called the rear hub oil seal. It should be bolted tight and well greased. That completes my rear tractor tire section and wheel section. On the rear of the trailer, we're going to start with the door. The door should be able to open and close. The latch, open and close as I mentioned. All the reflectors around the door should be not missing or discolored. On the lights, my left and my right turning signals should be able to turn on and off the same way where my emergency lights turn on and off, not discolored. My brake lights turn on and off, not discolorations on it. My DOT bumper should be welded to the frame with no cracks, no dents. The reflectors not missing. My airlines, ready for emergency, good for service, should be with no cracks, no tears. The rubber seals not missing. My electrical box should be bolted tight and no pins missing. My towing hook and my safety latch should be bolted tight. My chain hook should be welded to the frame. Everything bolted tight around it. My mud flats should be not touching the floor, not touching the tires. And all the reflectors in the back should be not missing and no discolorations on it. The exhaust and my washer fluid will be my last part of my walk around. I'm going to start with the exhaust. The exhaust should be bolted tight with no cracks and no dents. The grill should be not missing. And I shouldn't see no black soot around the exhaust. The window washer fluid is here. The cap should be open and closed and it should be at maximum level. This completes my walk around inspection.